Hey everybody, it's the waitingfornextyear.com podcast. I'm your host, Craig Lindell, and we're talking about the Cleveland Browns in a winning week as if they lost. That's kind of where everything begins and ends. The Browns have won 2 divisional games at home where the postgame talk felt like a funeral. How is that even possible? That we could win 2 games as fans of the Cleveland Browns, to have 2 division wins, one against Pittsburgh and one against Cincinnati, and we don't even get to enjoy them. Obviously, the first time was pretty understandable. The Browns lost Myles Garrett for the foreseeable future, still on indefinite suspension. And the second time, before the game started, there were rumors about Odell Beckham Jr. and how he's unhappy and wants out. And then after the game, when talking about Odell Beckham Jr., Baker Mayfield pulls one of the most immature, boneheaded moves I think I've ever seen a professional athlete do in a press conference in Cleveland. And he indicates that the medical staff didn't handle Odell Beckham's injury correctly. Now, I have no idea if the medical staff did a good or a bad job, or just how hurt Odell Beckham Jr. is. I have no reason to believe that he won't have surgery if that's what they're saying for a sports hernia. But there's just a way of going about your business. And Baker Mayfield failed on all accounts on Sunday after that game. And here we are picking up the pieces, the baggage, all the different things because of the way he handled it. And it's a disservice to the team. It's a disservice to the fans when Zach Jackson and others tell you that this is the most immature team they've ever been around. And we're talking about people who've seen Braylon Edwards and Kellen Winslow as a young player in the NFL. We're seeing reporters who covered Camp Romeo. What the Browns have is not a team. They've got a group of individuals, and maybe they become a team, but it's hard to project. Really, really hard to project. And that's how you end up having wins that feel like losses. You have wins that the headlines are dominated by negativity. Let's talk about that for a second, too, because so many people, look, I get it. You hate the media. You hate the local beat reporters. And I'm not telling you have to like Mary Kay, Tony Grossi, Dan Lobby, any of the local media, Doug LeMaurice, as much as he covers the Browns. You don't have to like these people. Daryl Ryder. You don't have to think they're good at their jobs. I don't care. But what you can't do is conflate your dislike of them for negative impact on the team. The bottom line is that this team is a disaster because this team has been a disaster. Whether it's Randy Lerner owning the team, whether it's Jimmy Haslam owning the team, whether it's Romeo Crennel coaching the team, whether it's Butch Davis coaching the team, whether it's Phil Savage at the helm, whether it's Mike Holmgren at the helm. The bottom line, the common denominator, even though you might think the common denominator are these reporters because they've been around, the common denominator is the shit team. The common denominator is the team that has failed in any number of ways, with any number of schemes, with how many different quarterbacks, coaches, GMs, draft picks, whatever, defensive styles. The common denominator is the Cleveland Browns, okay? They are the negative common denominator, not the media. That's not me saying, you don't have to think they're good at their jobs. You don't have to like them. I have my own opinions on different reporters who I think are good, bad, indifferent, whatever. We all have those opinions, and we're entitled to those. And I'm not telling you that you have to think these reporters are good. I'm telling you, you have to stop blaming them for anything related to the Cleveland Browns and their on-field and off-season success or the failures of quarterbacks, coaches, GMs, or anything else. The common denominator is the team itself, the employees in the building, the leadership at the top of the organizational chart, the ownership. That's the common denominator, not the reporters. Okay? Again, you don't have to like them, but it's not the reporters. So let's talk about coaching for a second. You can't talk about the Cleveland Browns without talking about Freddie Kitchens, and you can't talk about the most immature team that these reporters have ever covered without talking about the person who's leading them on a week-to-week basis, the one who's out in front of the camera, sometimes with a t-shirt on. He leads the way. He leads the culture. And you can't talk about the immaturity of the quote-unquote team without talking about Freddie Kitchens. And last time I got on this mic, I talked to you about how the Browns needed to determine if time was the missing ingredient, if they could trust him to take this team to the next level and grow and learn from this season and grow and learn with them. Now, a lot of the talk this week has been Mike McCarthy. It has been some of the, as the coaching carousel begins in the NFL, people are going to start looking for and finding replacements for their head coaches. And if the Browns are going to be a team that replaces Freddie Kitchens, I sure hope they're looking to replace him with an established candidate, somebody who's actually done this job before. You know, you always kind of go out and hire the opposite of what you hired the last time. And I hope that the Browns are doing that. If that's, I don't know if I want Mike McCarthy to be the Browns head coach. I know that he's a professional who's prepared, who's led a staff before. And yeah, it didn't work out in the end with Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers, but they had a very good marriage for a long time. And he is an established guy. He has a staff together. They have been working very similar to John Dorsey, who spent his fired season, his off time, preparing for his next job. Mike McCarthy is out there preparing for his next job. Now, Mike McCarthy is also a counterbalance to somebody like John Dorsey, because a lot of Browns fans have assumed that John Dorsey and the Browns hired Freddie Kitchens because the balance of power would rest with John Dorsey. It wasn't a coach who could challenge John Dorsey for authority in the Cleveland Browns organizational chart. Now, while I agree with that, doesn't that also lend credence to the idea that they might not want to bring in somebody like Mike McCarthy? Like they wouldn't want somebody like Josh McDaniels, who could come in and demand some power of their own, who could potentially end up in some sort of a power struggle. Not that I want that, but it seems kind of at odds with the idea. If that's truly one of the reasons why John Dorsey and the Browns hired Freddie Kitchens, because of the power dynamics and the lack of a struggle, would they then go out and respond to that by bringing in a Mike McCarthy or a Josh McDaniels? I don't really know. What I do know is that if the Browns are going to go to the trouble of taking that PR hit of firing another coach after 1 year of looking like the clowns of the NFL by being so unstable and silly and firing a coach after 1 year, they better have somebody lined up. They better have an established candidate ready to go, if you ask me. That's what I want to see. Kevin Stefanski is also out there too. And I don't, obviously the news earlier this year was that the Browns analytics department liked Kevin Stefanski and the Browns went another direction when they hired Freddie Kitchens. But Stefanski runs that zone blocking scheme, the Shanahan running scheme. And tell me you wouldn't love to see Baker Mayfield and, more importantly, Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt in a zone blocking scheme that, we're talking about a running scheme that made Reuben Drones look good, that created how many running backs over the years. So then if you take some uber talented running backs like Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt and put them in that scheme, and then allow Baker Mayfield to run the run fake, play fake, run that passing scheme off of those running plays. Tell me you wouldn't just love to see that. It'd be absolutely amazing. So I'm not predicting anything. I'm not rooting for anything as far as Freddie Kitchens' job because I just don't have enough information. What I do know is that I believe the Browns beat reporters who say that it's the most immature team they've ever seen. I just don't know how they respond to that. I don't know if the answer is flipping Freddie Kitchens out right now. I don't know if it's sticking with him and seeing how he and the team develop some maturity into year 2. What I do know is that the body language on everybody just sucks right now. It just sucks. Baker Mayfield used to be a fun quote, having a good time, confident, making jokes. Now it's like every week he's going to a funeral. His wife is attacking Mary Kay Cabot. He's not answering questions. He's soured on everybody. There are memes about his look on the podium after every game. I want to get back to having fun. This Browns football thing, this NFL thing, it's supposed to be a little bit of fun. And the Browns have won some games here in the second half. But because of expectations, because of all the things surrounding the team, whether it was Myles Garrett or Odell Beckham's rumor mill, it just hasn't been fun. Why can't it be fun? So I don't know what that means for the Browns in the next year. I don't know what I'm rooting for necessarily because I don't have enough information. But I just want this team to be that loose, fun, quotable team again. Wins that feel like wins and expectations that we can actually believe in for the playoffs. So hopefully someday, I don't think it's going to happen this year. I'm pretty positive it's not going to happen this year. But thanks so much for listening. We'll talk to you next time. I'm out to Jared Watson from the Andy and Jared Cleveland and Beyond podcast. He and I will talk. I don't think it's going to happen this week. It's probably going to happen next week. But you can hold me to that one and go subscribe to those guys. They're broadcasting their podcast live on Facebook Live now. So go look up Cleveland and Beyond on Facebook and subscribe to that. You'll get a notification when they go live if you subscribe to it the right way. And then we'll be sharing those videos on the Waiting for Next Year Facebook page after, once they hit the archives. I'm giving up podcasts to a large degree in 2020, which is an odd thing for a podcast host to say, but I was oversubscribed to podcasts. I was listening to too many of them that it was starting to weigh on me and making me miserable. So I'm listening to a lot more music. But the point is that Cleveland and Beyond, The Nail in the Coffin, our friend podcasts, they made the cut. I will continue to be listening to those because, Tom and Travis and Andy and Jared, I love what those guys are putting together. It's straightforward Cleveland sports talk, and we're going to bring more of that to you for the remainder of 2019 and into 2020. So I'm really excited for it. Thanks for hanging in there. Next up this week will be the Browns Friday Fumble. So talk to you next week. Thanks so much for listening. It's the waitingfornextyear.com podcast.